Hello YouTube, welcome to today's video where I'm going to give you 4 reasons why I'm going to continue to shoot film in 2022. Okay, so before I give you those reasons, what I wanted to do is just to say, well, because the regular viewers of this channel will know that the majority of the videos I've made so far are digital based. I do actually shoot digital and film sort of equal amounts really. I don't really have a preference for one over the other. It's just that going forward on this channel, probably more videos are going to feature film, but they're not necessarily going to be about film. It's just going to happen to be the medium of choice for that day of shooting. So I'm going to move on to them reasons now, and if you do like today's video, please do give the video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button to see more content from me in the future. The first reason, and it's probably one of the better reasons for why I shoot film, is the community. Okay, so what I like about the film community is it tends to be very approachable, very helpful. There's a lot of people in there that will give you good advice and good tips on how they shot things. They don't tend to keep it a secret so much. People will give you advice on processing, developing, scanning, and it's a real good exchange of information. There's a lot of people from different diverse groups sort of shooting film as well. They're all sort of communing with each other, sharing ideas, and as a result, the art that people produce is greatly improved as a result. Okay, so my next reason for why I like and enjoy shooting film is the process. So when I talk about the process of photography in general, for me, digital process and the film process are both rewarding. I get different results for each one and I enjoy them results. But for film, the particulars about the process I sort of enjoy the most really. I'm making a lot of decisions about how that final image looks, probably before I've even taken a photo. And what I mean by that is I'm going to make a decision on what film I'm going to use, what camera I'm going to use, and what format of film I'm going to use as well, probably based on conditions and what I'm shooting. So when I'm talking about different formats of film, I'm talking about, am I going to use 35mm, am I going to use a bigger format such as medium format or large format? If I'm using medium format, am I going to go for a camera that gives me a square crop like my Bronica, which shoots 6x6 sized images, or am I going to go for a camera such as my Fuji, which shoots 6x9, which is quite a large for medium format? And I'm going to get different results and different looks based on what I choose. So basically I've made decisions that are going to help me with the final aesthetic before I've even taken a photo. And then what I find as well is when I'm using film, because I've got a limited amount of shots as well, it sort of helps me slow down and it helps me ask questions to myself like, why am I taking this photograph? What is it about this scene that I want to photograph and what is it I want to convey? And as a result, I become a bit more meticulous in them moments. I'm not going to fire like 10, 20 shots of just one scene. I'm probably only going to take 2 photographs, probably just changing the exposure just to make sure I do get all the details in that I want. The other element about the process I like is sometimes the more hands-on approach as well. I tend to be using older cameras, and I'm going to talk about that as another reason later, where I'm completely manual. But also in the developing process, I like to develop my own film as well. So when you develop film for the first time you actually see images appear on that film, it's like a little bit of magic's happened and you feel quite proud of that result. And sometimes as a result, I think you feel closer to them images as you do as if you'd used a digital camera to capture the same scenes. So reason number 3 why I like to use film is the look or the aesthetic of film. So for me, film has a look that's different to digital. Some of that comes from film grain. I really enjoy film grain in images and think it looks really, really nice, and I think it adds something to that image as well. I also find with film that there's a bit more of a softness compared to digital images. So where a digital image can sometimes look a bit clinical and a bit like really sharp, with film I just get a softness which I find quite pleasing as well. So that softness to the image comes from film and different films I find have different levels of softness. Some of it also comes from the equipment as well, with using some of the older lenses. It's just the sort of look those lenses have. So that's why some digital photographers as well are trying to get a bit of a film look when they're using certain processing methods, or they're using like vintage lenses on the camera. But for me, it just makes more sense that if I want that look, just to use film, because it already has that look. So each film as well looks different, and I talked about that in the sort of process section, how I choose a film depending on the look I want. But I think it's worth bearing in mind that when people talk about films and the film look, and they'll maybe use Porta 400 as an example, and they'll say, oh, this is like got quite a pastel-y sort of low contrast image on it. A lot of that as well depends on your scanning. So I do edit film, and I edit my film shots once I scan, and I scan the images myself to get them looking how I want them to look. Because if you send a film off to a lab and you send another film off to a different lab, and they're the same films shot under the same conditions, when they come back they'll probably look completely different to each other, depending on who's been processing that film and then scanning that film in, and how they make decisions and how they think that film looks. And also with film, I find you get a few imperfections as well in it that can result from the process of developing, or having a bit of dust in there, or a scratch on the film. And sometimes I find these quite aesthetically pleasing as well. And together with that softer look and that sort of the film grain you get in film as well, I think it's almost more like capturing a memory as opposed to an image. So the fourth reason I like to choose film is the gear. I like the gear, and you get different cameras and they all work different to each other. A lot of the cameras I like are the older vintage cameras, which are pretty much completely manual, such as this Nikon FM2 here. It gives really sharp, nice images. It works perfectly well. I don't need a battery for it unless I'm using the light meter on it, and it's a great camera, and it's really reliable. Also, the other end of the scale, you have these tiny little cameras. So this is an Olympus XA. So this is a tiny little rangefinder camera. It pretty much works in aperture mode, so you choose your aperture and it'll work out the exposure shutter speed for you. Obviously your ISO is set from what film you've put in, and this is a great camera because I can put it in a pocket, I can go on a walk for the day, and I can use this to document a family day out. Or I quite often have this in my pocket when I'm walking the dog. If I see something interesting, this will be the camera I use to sort of capture that. I mean, there's hundreds of options for cameras out there. Now, one thing with gear is prices in recent years have sort of skyrocketed. So there's but quite basic cameras out there that are fetching like £1,000 or $1,000, just because, quite often because a celebrity has particularly used it. And people who know film probably know what kind of cameras I'm on about there. But there's a load of cameras that are just off the radar as well, which are really cheap, that you can pick up, have a look around. If you've got elderly relatives and they might have an old camera that they don't use, they might be happy to lend you, or other people in the family as well. But there's lots of inexpensive options there, so if you go to charity shops you might be able to pick up something as well. And they're all good, and they all give you a different look. Some of them maybe don't work as well as others, but that's again part of the challenge as well. So I know I've got cameras where the shutter speeds are slightly out, but I can take that into account when I'm taking a photo and use that to get the images I want, and that just becomes part of the challenge and part of the process for me. Okay, so thank you for watching today's video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed it, please do hit that subscribe button and give the video a like. I'll be making more videos where I go out shooting film in the future. Although, as I've mentioned earlier, the video itself may not be about film, but what I'll try and do is, if I do choose a film or a particular camera that day, I'll probably put a couple of reasons in why. Okay, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.